All right, topic 1.5 ratification of the United States Constitution today. All right, a little general ideas to start us off about the ratification. Understand this. In order for the Constitution to be ratified by the United States, 9 out of 13 states have to say yes. So that's why I have that 9 listed above there. Now, ultimately, that race to 9 creates this debate between people that like the new Constitution, Federalists, they are for, F stands for, and people that are against the new Constitution that's anti-federalist as well too. And we covered a lot of that when we talked about those founding documents and so on as well. But at least with the drawing or creation of the Constitution, what you need to understand is one side didn't completely dominate the discussion. They like to call this entire process a bundle of compromises because in order to get this done, various different states had to compromise with one another and get some things and give up some things as well. So the first compromise we had is the Connecticut Compromise, the Grand or Great Compromise as well, and it's the debate over representation in Congress. Now, ultimately, what the compromise comes out to is we will have a bicameral Congress, meaning two houses, where the House of Representatives will be based on population. Congratulations, large states. And the Senate will be based on equality for two per state. So, congratulations, small states. Then we have the Electoral College. So there's that general fear over the single executive. It seems like a king. It sounds like a king. One person enforcing law, very scary. Well, at least for the election, what the founders come to with the compromise is okay. The people just aren't going to be responsible for choosing the president. The group that is going to choose the president formally is going to be a group of select individuals called the Electoral College. So just in case the people make the wrong choice, you still have that, last resort here of these people saying, no, 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 people, you're totally wrong. This other person would be best. We're voting for them. Thus, they'll be the next president of the United States. Now, the Three-Fifths Compromise and the compromise of importation on slaves is all about the slave states in the South and the northern states. Now, Three-Fifths Compromise is all about counting population for the House of Representatives. Southern slave states wanted to count one slave equated as one person. Northern states weren't down for that. So the compromise is one slave shall equate to 3/5 of a person when you're counting your population for the House of Representatives. So the northern states are happy about that. Now, the compromise on the importation of slaves is basically we will not touch the slave trade for the next 20 years moving forward. And that's a win for the southern slave states as well. So, once again, a compromise between different groups here. Now, even though your book's not going to say it, later on down the line, when states are beginning to debate whether or not they should ratify the Constitution, there's going to be kind of an agreement that is made between the Federalists and Anti-Federalists. The Federalists are going to say, hey, listen, we promise you, Anti-Federalists, that if you ratify this Constitution, we will begin work instantaneously on a Bill of Rights. It's not in the original Constitution. We get that it's fearful for you, but we promise we'll work on it. We promise it will be in there, but just please ratify first. And they did ratify, and by looking at the Constitution, we have a Bill of Rights, so the promise was upheld. Now, down here with the amendment process, the compromise that I'm just going to say here real fast is this. When you look at the amendment process, the one group that you're always going to see that is always going to be prevalent are people, okay? Are people. The people are always part of this process, no matter what. When you ratify, either the legislatures in your states, composed of people in your states, have to ratify it, or state conventions where people show up, citizens of your state are going to have to ratify too. But even at the proposal, should we do it? Should we actually apply it? Notice that it can be proposed by Congress or the people. So when you're looking at this, understand that the people are always going to be part of this process. Now notice who is it? The executive branch is not part of this process. And by the way, the executive branch can't veto these amendments, if you will. And the Supreme Court is not part of this process as well. This is all about a process between the people. So if you want to change the highest law in the land, it's got to go through the people first. Now, the other thing that I would say that your book might mention and the test would talk about is informal change via the Supreme Court. Now, whenever the Supreme Court makes a ruling in the case, they don't formally change the wording of the Constitution. What they do is interpret the meaning of it. So when they talk about informal change of the Supreme Court via the Supreme Court, informal change or amendment process via the Supreme Court, if you will, what they're saying is the Supreme Court is making a decision on the meaning of the Constitution. So, the Constitution says this, but it means this, and that's always open up for debate. Now, as far as these compromises that we've talked about, some of them that are still in play today, you have the issue of the Senate, whether or not the people should be in the process of picking the Senate. Now, originally, the Senate was chosen by state legislatures. And so when you look at that body, I like to describe them as, like, at least the House and the Senate, as a cup of coffee and a saucer. The cup of coffee is your House of Representatives. It runs hot. And it can burn you if you get real close to it. The Senate is the saucer, okay? Now, what I mean by that is sometimes the House of Representatives wants to act now, and they're very emotional, and they're hot, like a hot cup of coffee. But what the Senate's job is to cool people off, okay? Is to be like, okay, I'm the saucer, coffee, sit on me, cool down for a little bit. Let's not react right away. Let's do the right thing, not the political thing as well. So when they were elected by state legislatures, they could do that all day long because they didn't have to worry about the people. They just worried about, the state legislatures, or more importantly, all the people in their state. So they have a wider range of people that they're representing and so on as well. When you made them popular elected, now they're in the situation where they're going to be elected every 6 years, and they're worried about the population. With the population, should we have done that, or should we have left them alone and let them have more elite interest away from the people, make them more removed from the people rather than closer to the people as well? And the Electoral College is another one that always comes up for debate because we've had a few cases in our nation's history where the person who has won the popular vote has not won the election. And people look at that and see that that's not fair. Now, we should know by this class that it's not about the popular vote, at least with the president. It's about winning enough states to get 270 electoral votes. Well, the debates today are whether or not we should just get rid of it. All right? Should we get rid of it? Should we just go to a popular vote for the president? Or should we switch to a system where states commit their electoral college votes to the person who wins the popular vote, even though it might go against their vote? So, for example, here, if Illinois votes Democratic in 2020, the Democratic candidate wins the state, but President Trump were to win the most popular votes, Illinois would say, I know we voted for the Democratic candidate, but what we're going to do now is cast our votes towards the winner of the popular vote. Should we do that? So those two things are still at play right today. Now, at least for this last one, the debate over the role of the central government and state governments and the rights of present day, what they're talking about here is this debate over government surveillance. Like, how much is too much? How much is acceptable? And then the debate over the role of the federal government in public schools. I will attach an article about government surveillance and a website about the role of federal government in public school education. They both do great jobs exploring the debate of whether or not each of these questions is valid. So look at them. Now, before I leave you, once again, do the study guide, do the study guide, do the study guide, do the study guide. Also, about next Monday or Tuesday, I'm thinking about putting up the Unit 1 review check on AP Classroom. That will be for a completion grade. You will be required to log into AP Government and do that. So be ready for that as well. All right, and other than that, if you ever have any questions, concerns, or comments, always contact me. But on that, I will see you tomorrow.